It's another review of a thing most people won't be interested in, and this one is the Xencelabs tablet. So I'm a long time tablet user and designer by trade. This is used in anger for professional use. You can see it's got dings and scratches and shit. This gets used pretty much all day long. Well, literally all day long, every day. So I use them. In fact, I break them, and I've owned lots of tablets over the years. Many, many, many tablets. I think I've been using them since around 2010. I've owned predominantly Wacom tablets in that time, and this is the first tablet I've used full-time that does not come from Wacom. So I've had, oh Christ, I don't even know how many. Intuos 3, Intuos 4, the 5 with the rubber on, the one that came after, I think it's called the Intuos Pro, a couple of generations of those. I've had a Bamboo, 3 Cintiqs, and I've had like Huion tablet briefly as well. So I've tried a load of tablets. And overall, out of all the ones I've owned, this one is probably, with a few caveats, the best one. For some really good reasons. It's not like a, here's what's in the box, here's what I like. Well, it is here's what I like, but it's not like, you know, a review for review's sake. This is someone who uses these, right? Like, I mean, a lot of people who use these, but I've used these extensively and to destruction on more than one occasion, because I'm very rough on the things that I own. So it comes from that perspective. So what makes this one so good? Well, first off, there is the fact that it's very similar to a Wacom. The prevailing thing goes around right now that companies like Huion and XP Pen, and I think there's another one, make tablets that are comparable to Wacom. Kind of, they've gotten an awful lot better in the last few years. Wacom did not have any competition for the first like 20 years they were around at all. Like there was Wacom and there was the other stuff that was shit. And they're pretty good, but they're generally not super good in terms of durability and accuracy, and they've got some jank in the software which needs working out, which this doesn't have. Frankly, it's the first one to feel like whatever. So you open it up and it feels like a Wacom, mostly. But a few things that Wacom don't do, a few niceties, and some improvements. I think this thing was built basically ground up to be a Wacom killer. It costs the same money, right? It's not even cheaper, and it's built arguably better, and Wacom products are built pretty damn well. So a few things this has that a Wacom doesn't, say an Intuos, so like the higher end ones, or the Intuos Pros, you know, the higher end Wacoms, is it's extraordinarily thin, which is really good, and it can do that because the back is made out of, see, I'm not pre-prepared, it's covered in fucking crumbs, but yeah, the back is made out of metal, which means it's very, very thin, but also still feels super, super duper durable. It comes in a nice carry case and some other accessories, but it's very, very thin, which means your wrist is lower to the ground, which is quite nice. Also, this way, it's tapered on the wrist. It's almost like a wrist rest on a keyboard. So it's tapered, which is very, very nice. It's incredibly comfortable to use. It's minimal. There's lots of buttons. Xencelabs made the choice of deferring away a lot of the buttons and making it a choice by doing a separate controller, similar to some of the larger Cintiqs have these kind of puck controllers. They made that the default. This is so much better than having a bunch of buttons flanked, because it makes the overall profile or size of this thing an awful lot smaller, which is great. A few things where it beats out a Wacom as well. Surface finish. So this is a bone of contention with old school pen, tablet, and Wacom users is, which is your favorite tablet finish, right? So when the Intuos 3 was a thing, which is pretty damn old right now, it's like early 2000s, it was slick. It was basically completely smooth, and they went the opposite way when they updated it, and they made it very grippy and more sort of like paper-like. A lot of people didn't like it. You wear through nibs quicker. I personally found them too grippy. It would actually just eat through nibs. It used to go through them like a crazy rate. They've reeled it back a little bit, but I'd say the surface on this is kind of like the middle ground. It's not as grippy as some of the older Intuoses, but it's not as slick as like an Intuos 3, right? So it's kind of like, it's the good thing. They tuned it to be very, very nice indeed, which is great. That's one of the main things you use it for, is, you know, using it to use, right? The second thing is the pens. I say pens plural because it comes with 2 pens. There's one there. This is the default pen. I should have gotten a Wacom out to show by comparison, but whatever. It's great. It's basically the same profile as what they call the Pro Pen. I think it's called the Pro Pen still. There's a default pen that comes with a higher end Wacom tablet, which is a little bit fatter and a little bit shorter. And I do another pen, which is a little bit thinner and a little bit longer. In fact, I think there are more tablets now, but it used to be an optional extra you had to pay for to get that pen. This is already pretty much the same size as that pen. It's a little thinner than a lot of the Wacoms. It also has 3 buttons. And in terms of feel, it feels identical. Build quality, it feels as good, if not ever so slightly better than a regular Wacom pen, which is great. And 3 buttons is useful. I don't actually use the 3rd button very often, but it's nice to know that it's there. I had it configured for some stuff, but I don't really use it so much. It doesn't come with a pen holder, so I use an old Wacom one, which is sucky. That's one of the things that I didn't like. But what it does come with when you're traveling around is a case. So this little case contains your spare nibs. Let's see again, this gets used. The second pen, a nib extractor, and also the adapter's in at the minute, but the wireless adapter, because this is wireless. I think most Wacoms are wireless now as well anyway. I'm not sure if there's an option anymore. I've not bought one in a while, because you have one for a few years, right? So yeah, you've got an adapter for, you know, big USB to USB-C. This is USB-C, which is awesome, because everything should be USB-C. Second pen, and it's this nice, very high quality rubberized case. So the second pen is, and I really don't use this pen because I don't really see the point, is this thinner guy, which has 2 buttons. I've used this about 5 times. It's good, it's great, feels nice, but it just has less utility than the other one. It just feels like you get used to the feel of the shape of that pen. It just becomes, you know, you use it all day with your computer. It just becomes second nature to have it be that shape in your hand. So a lot of people think will probably tend to use that more often. But it's pretty good. Also, you can set separate keyboard shortcuts per pen, or button shortcuts per pen. So if you want to use both for whatever reason, you can swap pens and have them behave differently. You can set that in the software. I'm not going to show you the software because it's boring as hell. Needless to say, it's pretty good. It does what I think you'd expect it to. You can set separate keyboard shortcuts per application. There's lights on this tablet, so you can have those color-coded to match whatever you're doing. So you can see if these keyboard shortcuts have changed or whatever, because it changes depending on what application you're in, which is quite cool. Surprisingly useful. And then there's this guy, which I have not actually turned on at the moment. Give it a second. Hooray! Which is the little controller. So these are both wireless. The wireless is quite good. When I got onto my negatives, there's a couple of things to say, but yeah, basically these are programmable. You can set your little, you know, whatever they're supposed to be, and between applications you can create sets. So I've got Figma open on a separate window, and I have 2 sets of controls for it. If I change this one, I have my Figma set A, which has, you know, some Figma specific stuff, frame selected, create a component, whatever, and I can have a separate set for whatever I've got. This is also color coded, so your wheel here, you can change it or have multiple pages of buttons. It's very, very, very good. And it's built like a tank as well. Everything's built extremely well. So there's a couple of negatives of this. Like, first off, there's no pen holder that comes with it, which kind of sucks. It's a bit of a weird oversight. They even give you like a drawing club. Like, there's a weird glove with these 2 fingers cut out of it, which is weird. And a nice soft insert, fleeced inside carry case for when you travel, which is also very, very nice. But things like no pen holder. And also the second thing, and the most important one, is the battery life is kind of sucky. It's not great. So I think if you use this wirelessly, you kind of have to charge it every day. It's very nice to use it wirelessly. But yeah, it doesn't last super long. Weirdly, this controller lasts an awful... You'd think this would probably take less power. The sort of inductive part of this is like tiny, tiny amounts of electricity. You'd expect this to last no time at all. This actually lasts way longer than this. I don't know why. This you don't have to charge all too often. The battery life's really, really good. The battery life on this, you know, it might last like most of a day or a full day or a day and a bit, depending on how much you use it. It's not amazing. So that's a big downside. Basically half the time it's plugged in, really. The second or third, I'm not keeping count. I think the third thing that kind of sucks is a really me-centric thing, which I'm not sure everyone's familiar with, but when you scroll pages with a pen, on a Wacom it's got a mode called pan and scroll, right? So it's a thing we can hold down a button, say in a web browser. If you hold this down, it basically does the equivalent of grab and then move up. So you can kind of flick pages up and down, right? If you have a Wacom, you know what I mean. It's inside the little navigation tab inside the configuration software for Wacoms. Yeah, this doesn't have that, which is something I use constantly, which is sort of like, yeah, grab and throw pages up and down. to sort of like grab it, give it a throw, and it scrolls up, scrolls down. This doesn't do that. You get the equivalent of a middle click, which also navigates windows up and down. But I do miss that pan and scroll. It does sadden me, and it makes me use a mouse more often, because I occasionally use a mouse. So because that's not here, and this is actually the biggest one, I should have started with it, I use a mouse more than I ever have in years. In fact, actually for many years I didn't use a mouse at all. And now I occasionally use a mouse. So if I've got a day where I know I'm going to be spending a long time scrolling up and down web pages, a lot of the time I actually use a mouse now. But that brings me back onto one last positive, which is, I don't know if it's the mouse or the combination of this. I've used a few mice on this, it still works. On a lot of Wacoms, mice don't actually work on the Surface. They go weird. It's something about the interference. I'm not sure if it's the mouse or whatever. I've been in a situation where mice don't work on Wacom tablets, so I don't know what the drivers are. All I know is on this one, various mice work just fine, but this still turned on. You can use a mouse on top of it. So I remember there's been times I've had to unplug my Wacom to occasionally use a mouse for whatever reason. But this, not an issue. I don't know. I don't know any more than that. That's all I know. But yeah, in summary, it's great. All told, it's built better. The reason why I didn't continue with Wacom was partly because this sounded exciting. The company I know is staffed by a bunch of ex-Wacom people, and they built this thing to be, a Wacom killer. So confident in their abilities, they didn't even reduce the price. I think actually without the controller, it's a little bit cheaper than a Wacom equivalent, but with the controller, it's slightly more. But it's a professional level graphics tablet. And there's a lot of videos on YouTube, people being like, "Oh, it doesn't matter. They're all the same." They're not all the same. It's not true yet. That's not really the case. If you're going to use something at anger every day, you're better buying the expensive one because they just last longer. These cost quite a lot of money, and you want them to kind of last, And I've had a few occasions. My last Intuos, which was like the 5th generation or whatever, Intuos Pro, maybe like I don't know, 6 years ago, 7 years ago. No, longer, maybe 8 years ago. That was the last Intuos I had, because after that I had a Cintiq Companion, which is a very short-lived device. But anyway, my last Intuos I had broke. The I think it was like mini USB or micro USB connector, and again the battery life isn't super great on Wacoms either. But yeah, that was wireless, and one day the connector broke, and I couldn't connect my tablet anymore, which was sucky. And considering this is like a 300 and something pound tablet at the time, it's very, very distressing. So that kind of sucks. But then these things happen. So you want these things to last. You want them to be built quite well. Wacoms are built well. This is built, I think, better. The fact it's thin and it has this wrist rest makes it more comfortable. The surface is, for someone like me, absolutely perfect. The pen is exactly what you expect it to be. Software-wise is mostly there. The separate controller is excellent. There's a couple of little downsides, but overall these things are insane. If you're in the market for a Wacom, like a higher-end Wacom, honestly, I think this is a better buy nowadays than the stuff that Wacom's making, which is the first time I've thought that's been true. In terms of pen feel and that kind of stuff, it feels indistinguishable in terms of lag, in terms of responsivity, pressure, tilt, all that kind of stuff. Works exactly as you'd expect it to. Ultimately, it feels like a Wacom. Has this weird nostalgic thing of feeling like your favorite Wacom, right? Where you eventually change to a new one, and you always have fondness for this old thing you used every day and drove into the fucking ground. And this is like, you open up and you're like, oh, it's like my old one. You like it immediately, basically. It's very, very good. So I think if someone's in the market, for a new sort of high-end graphics tablet, honestly, I think this is the one to buy. So, and take that for what you will. Anyway, that's me done. For the, I don't know, 1/3 of a person's watched this video. Cheers for sticking around for 14 minutes for hand shaky cam. And I might do another one of these at some point in the future. All right, love you, bye.